All right, let's talk about the Kerala Service Rules, or the KSR. If you're a government employee in Kerala, this is the rulebook of all rulebooks. It's pretty much the operating system for public service in the state, and today we're going to break it all down. So, you think you know the ins and outs of government jobs in Kerala? Well, let's find out. We're going to do this a little differently today, more like a quiz. So get ready to see how well you know the fine print that really shapes thousands of careers. Okay, so first things first. Before we jump into our quiz, what exactly are these rules we're talking about? Let's set the stage. Think of it like this. The KSR is the complete instruction manual for a government servant's career in Kerala. It's the A to Z guide that covers everything. Your pay, your vacation time, your pension when you retire, all of it. It's the master document. So a rulebook this important has to have some serious legal muscle behind it, right? Of course it does. Its power actually comes from the highest law of the land, the Constitution of India itself. All right, time for our first real pop quiz question. Every major state rule needs a constitutional backbone. So which article gives the state government the green light to create something like the KSR? Take a second, lock in your answer. And the answer is 309. Yep, that's the one. Article 309 is what gives the state the power to lay down the law for its public services, to regulate everything about recruitment and the conditions of a job. This is the ultimate source of the KSR's authority. You know, it's pretty interesting how this whole thing was rolled out. It didn't just appear overnight. First came Part 3, which deals with pensions way back in 1956. Then, a full 3 years later, Parts 1 and 2, which cover all the general rules and leave policies, were put into effect. The whole structure was then cemented with the Kerala Public Service Act in 1968. Okay, this next part is maybe the most practical question for anyone working in or even thinking about a government job. Who do these rules actually apply to? Because believe it or not, the answer isn't everybody. So the KSR draws a really clear line in the sand. On one side, if you're a whole-time government employee, even if you're a provisional hire, you're in, you're covered. But on the other side, there are some really important exceptions. People working on contingency or as work establishment staff, or, and this is the big one, anyone whose job is created by a special law or contract, well, the KSI doesn't apply to them. All right, let's do a quick check to make sure that's sank in. You were paying attention, right? Based on what we just covered, which one of these groups is definitely not covered by the KSR? And you got it. The answer is C. It's all about those special appointments. If a person's job is already defined by its own separate law, then that law takes precedence. This is a super important exception to remember. And if you're looking for a perfect, real-world example of this, look no further than the personal staff hired for ministers. They aren't governed by the general KSR. Nope. They have their own set of special rules, laid out directly by the legislature. All right, let's move on to our next piece of the puzzle, power. We know the government has all this authority under the KSR, but can it just hand off its responsibilities to others down the chain? Well, this is where things get tricky. So, what are we even talking about when we say delegation? Well, it's pretty simple, really. It's just the government giving certain powers to its officers down the line, to keep things running smoothly and efficiently. But, and this is a big but, it can't give away all its power. Okay, this one's a bit of a brain teaser, so pay close attention. The government can absolutely delegate day-to-day stuff like handling transfers or even some disciplinary actions, but some powers are so important it has to keep them for itself. So looking at these options, which power can the government absolutely not delegate? The correct answer? It's C, determining the standard rent of a government building. And that's because the government holds on tight to the really big ticket items. We're talking about fundamental powers that set new policies or have major financial consequences. Things like making new rules from scratch, deciding on allowances, and handling these very specific financial matters, those are just too crucial to hand off to someone else. All right, we've covered a ton of ground here. The what, the who, and the how. So let's pull it all together and wrap this up by thinking about why all of this stuff really truly matters. Okay, quick recap. If you're going to walk away with just 3 key things today, let them be these. Number 1, the KSR gets its power straight from the Constitution, from Article 309. Number 2, it's for whole-time employees, but remember those key exceptions. And number 3, the government can delegate a lot, but it keeps the most fundamental power of the purse decisions for itself. And that really leaves us with one final big question to chew on. The KSR was created over 60 years ago. The world has changed. The nature of work has changed. So how does a foundational rulebook like this keep up? How do you strike that perfect balance between fairness for employees and effectiveness for the public? That's the real challenge going forward. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.